Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started in just a second. It's so exciting to see that everybody's joined us from all over. Thank you.
I can't.
Things aren't in order. I'm actually Neil. That's John.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yes.
You had me worried there for a minute.
Sometimes we trade hats.
Okay, Brandon, are we ready?
Yeah, I think we were waiting on Katie, but she may join us.
Okay.
Maybe we'll start just by asking all the panelists to hit your mute button as Kay does the introductions. Thanks so much.
Hi, welcome to MAM's first Indian Country Conversation, ICC, first one of 2021. My name is Kay Grissom-Kiely. I'm the Curator of Education here at the Missoula Art Museum. Brandon Reintjes, Senior Curator of Exhibitions, is also on from MAM. We will be moderating this event today. We invited the artist of this project, Corwin Clairmont, and each of the authors from this publication, Corwin Clairmont, Two-Headed Arrow, the Tar Sands Project, here with us to engage in a virtual discussion about Corky's project. And we are so grateful that each author and Corky Clairmont is here with us today. This will be a conversation between the authors with participant comments turned off. There will be a Q&A at the end following, where participants can enter in their questions. And I wanted to let everybody know that ICC will be recorded and available on our website at a future date. So I hope you can spread the word and people can still hear the recorded conversation today. I'd like to read MAM's land acknowledgement statement. MAM is situated on the ancestral territories of the Salish and Ponderay peoples. MAM is committed to respecting the rich cultures that are fundamental to the artistic life in Montana and to the work of MAM. Okay, I think I will go ahead and turn things over to Brandon Reintjes. Brandon, and we can go ahead and proceed.
I just wanted to welcome everybody. This is so exciting. We've avoided doing these as virtual events in the past just because they're such intimate gatherings. There's an element of trust and cross-cultural exchange, and sometimes people are speaking from a very personal space. And so we've never done one on Zoom before. And I thank everybody for taking this journey and trusting both the recorded element and the group effort here, because once you're broadcast on the internet, it's all over, right? This is it. Boy, we have such a wonderful group of people here, and really this is a celebration of Corky's exhibition at MAM from 2018 of the same title, Tar Sands Two-Headed Arrow Project. And it was such a wonderful project. The catalog, however, was a little bit forthcoming. As you see, here it is 3 years later, and we've got the catalog in hand. Finally, we're so excited to have it here, and it's such a great document of the project. We're so grateful to the Prop Foundation and to the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts for providing sponsorship and making the catalog possible. The catalog, you'll notice Ben Ferenz, and he's down in my lower left-hand corner. Ben was chief designer, and the design cooperative created this marvelous document and record of the exhibition. It really stands on its own as an art piece in and of itself, and we really wanted and hoped that the catalog would capture the feeling of the project. So a little business push on the side. If you don't have a copy of the catalog in your hands right now, they're really hot. Come down to MAM and pick one up. You can order them on our website. You can email us at info@missoulaartmuseum.org. You can shop on the web. We'll get you a catalog, we promise. We want to get these out into the world. In this time of COVID, when we've lost so many people and we're all sheltered in place, this idea of a gathering that happens on the computer has become such an important point of connection, and we want the catalog of Corky's project to get out there in the world and to do the good work of representing him. I'm just going to introduce everybody really quickly and then turn it over, because the real talent that's in the room, so to speak, are the artists and the authors here. This is, look at the screen. This is the most amazing group of scholars and artists and critics that can speak to this issue here gathered together, and we're so excited to have them. Corky is at MAM. He's in the library. You probably don't know this, but he's going to stay at the museum after today's discussion and sign copies of the catalog. That doesn't mean you have to rush down and get a signed copy, but if you want one, you can send us a message through the Zoom webinar, send us an email, or just let us know, and we'd be happy to put aside a catalog. Or if you want to stop by with masks, we're all isolated in our little echo chambers here so that we could take the masks off our face for this Zoom webinar, so you could hear us enunciate and elucidate Corky's work and project. But if you stop down, we do have masks on at the museum. Aside from Corky, who is such an accomplished and amazing visual artist and former faculty and founder of the SKC Fine Arts Department, we have Ben Ferenz, who I introduced as the designer from the Design Cooperative, Stephen Gluckert, who's up in my top left corner as the MAM Senior Curator Emeritus. Katie Kane was with us before, and I think she'll pop back on. She must be having trouble connecting. Katie is professor of English at the University of Montana. And Kate Shanley, to my lower left, professor and chair of Native American Studies at the University of Montana. Jean Quick-to-See Smith at the center screen, with Neil on her left, our right, he's the one with the hat on, we found. And Gail Tremblay, artist, author, curator, critic, educator, just an amazing group of people. So thank you for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Corky now, and Corky will get us started. Thank you so much, Corky.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Oh man, so great to be here. I'm not real comfortable with Zoom yet, but hopefully we'll get through this and it'll be beneficial for somebody. You know, this time, you know, in our lives, our days, is pretty traumatic, and it's hard to do some things without thinking about these times. And I would like to acknowledge just for a moment all those, you know, that have had losses of loved ones. You know, our family personally has had loved ones that have gone on and due to COVID. And you think of 400,000 plus people, you know, that have gone on now because of this disease, this virus. It just can't. It's just so impacting, and the what we're doing today, you know, it's almost trivial in comparison, though it is. But I just wanted to acknowledge that and pray for those now that have gone on, but also acknowledge those personally, you know, in our lives that have gone on. We've lost elders on our reservation, lost important cultural people, medicine people, Willie Kayai in particular, and others, you know, that, you know, we can't bring them back. You know, their knowledge and their guidance is now not there for us. We can't just go to the phone and call them up or see them and have them do what they do culturally for us. So I'd just like to take a moment and maybe have a prayer for those people, acknowledge them. Thank you. And get on with the show. But I'd also, of course, like to thank the staff here at MAM for their efforts. You know, not only in putting this catalog together, but the exhibits and other things that they've done here, in particular for highlighting our tribal community in terms of the artists, you know, that are there, that have important messages and important things to say. So our tribal communities, I feel, are so important, you know, in communicating who we are as a people, but also helping all of us go on, you know, into the future. You know, we've always been told through our ancestors, you know, that who were here thousands of years before us, you know, they prepared the way for us. You know, we owe them a great debt. And we in turn owe that debt to those that are coming after us. You know, we feel that if you think of 10,000 years, well, we should be also thinking 10,000 years ahead in some way. We need to be here because this is where the place that we were placed, you know, by the Creator. And it's just important, you know, that information or our understanding of how we should be as human beings, that needs to be told, you know, and there's no greater way to do that than through the arts. And I thank the MAM for providing the opportunity, you know, to be able to do that and to carry on that conversation that's so important for life and for all of us. I thank Linda too. She's sitting over here for her always great support, you know, that she has given me. Of course, the other great support, you know, through the essays in this catalog in bringing about or helping with the conversation that's contained in the artwork of the Tar Sands Choose project exhibit. It was just so wonderful, you know, to read the essays and get clarity and understanding that was brought about, because everyone, you know, that maybe had an opportunity to see the exhibit will have their own understanding of what they've seen. You know, I certainly have you know, things that I felt important that could be talked about through the work, and but it really is so fun, you know, for me to hear the words of others that have seen the exhibit, because they also then can contribute to the dialogue and possibly the enrichment of the project. And I really am honored, you know, that the essays that appeared in the catalog is so well thought out and well done, and I know they're not easy to do. You know, I really appreciate, you know, that time and effort. And again, just to go through those that contributed, not in any particular order, but I'll start with John Quick-to-See Smith, Neil Ambrose, Gail Trimley, Steve Gluckert, Kate Shanley, Katie Kane. I really appreciate your efforts. You know, it was just really felt good, and made my spirit grow and fly and glow. You know, and I don't want to spend too much time making comments myself because there's such a terrific gathering here of minds and spirits. So I would like to spend time, you know, with you as my great friends. And because so many things were said, you know, it's hard for me to pull out, you know, just one sentence or one phrase, you know, to talk about. But I did would like to acknowledge a few things here. And again, with John and Neil, you know, thinking about the aspects of travel, you know, which was important to our tribal communities. You know, it was necessary. We traveled from place to place to gather our needs, to socialize, which is important, to celebrate, which was important, and in the gathering of our, you know, our foods and the medicines and different things, you know, is so important. And that's we didn't travel because it was just something to do, and we were lost in space or something. We had destinations, we had places that we needed to go that were, because without that travel, we wouldn't be able to exist as a community. You know, we passed on our stories and our knowledge through the contacts that we would make. And Kate Shanley, she was emphasizing imagination, allowing us to understand better, you know, who we are, you know, in our hearts and minds, and acknowledging the use of everyday objects, you know, in my work, like the gummy bears and double-headed arrow warning sign that you come to at a T intersection where you have to make a decision to go one way or the other. And of course, we're at a point where we need to be making the right decision, right choices, especially concerning our environment and how we should be. And thank God, you know, we had an election where many chose the right choice, and we have a beautiful lady now, Kamala Harris, and we have a good man, Joe Biden, running our country now. A lot of cleanup, a lot of wounds have to be healed there, but I hope that with our, you know, prayer and support, that they'll be able to do the job, you know, that needs to be done now. And also, you know, speaking of all of our people, you know, the animals, plants, those that fly, the four-legged, the fish, you know, all these, those are our brothers and sisters, you know. They're part of us, and we need to watch out for them as they've watched out for us for thousands of years. There's so many things, and Gail, I really love your commentary and your words. You know, they're always so right on, and looking at the use of words, you know, is so important, you know, and 'cause that's how we communicate. but the term symbolic and you know, the two-headed arrow, choose, all those things were a really important part of the piece. And I thank you for narrating and really talking about those things. And Steve, you're part of this, of course, Missoula community here, and you've seen the mega loads coming through, and that emphasizing the destructive nature of that equipment, you know, I think was important, and looking at the relationship between the destruction of our tribal communities, you know, in relationship to the immensity of those mega loads is, I think, really important. And Kate, I really appreciate your words. You know, your writing is so right on as well. You talk about the history of our tribes in our community, and the fact that you know, we really have things to think about in terms of our tribal communities and our relationships. And I really appreciate your words. And Kate, I really appreciate your writing, even though it was somewhat reduced in which you had written. Your reference to the Montana being the last best place, but the last best place to be sold, considering the 16 super funds that are here that we're trying to clean up. But you know, there's so much here, and I'd like to just open it up now for maybe people's commentary or questions if they had any of me. Sorry, anybody want to volunteer? Sean?
I'd like to acknowledge where we're speaking from. 23 tribes in the state of New Mexico, and right on this land, possibly Pueblo, Sandia, and Isleta, possibly, although thousands of years ago, you know, people moved across this land. So there are 19 Pueblos here, and then there are Navajo people and Apache people. And the land in this state was never ceded. So it's unceded land. It was only ceded from Mexico, but to the United States, but not by the tribes here. So I just wanted to acknowledge the people here. I'm grateful, Neil and I are both grateful to be able to work in relationship and strengthen community on this territory here. Then I also wanted to ask you, Corky, the president just put a stop on the XL pipeline. What are you thinking about that?
I think that's a really making a good choice. He's choosing wisely. A long time coming, you know, and it should have happened much sooner. And it's a fact right now that the oil companies and those that are into oil production they're seeing a diminishing return now, because the use of oil is starting to go down greatly, and a lot of the major companies, you know, that would support those oil companies are now reconsidering and not buying into or supporting those companies anymore through their loans and whatever, because they see a diminishing return on their investment. So so many alternatives being developed, especially the automobile with electric automobiles and hybrids, and the wind power and other sources of energy, the solar power those are taking over, the energy developments. And so I think a lot of the companies now are seeing the handwriting on the wall that exploitation of oil production is no longer as urgent or as needed. And of course, what's going to happen, because the Middle East is the source of actually the clean oil, you can almost use it as it comes out of the ground without a lot of processing. That more dependency eventually will go in that direction. So I'd like to see continuation of the closing down of the pipelines and the exploration of the oil. And I understand that the places of exploration, such as in the far north, Alaska, et cetera, they're reconsidering a lot of that exploration because it's just not being a profitable thing to do. So the pocketbook, I guess, speaks, but it also is going to greatly help our environment. And we might put off the catastrophe of global warming somewhat.
Corky, I would also like to say that talking about the idea of choice, that I think a lot of people don't understand or forget that it's the tough choice that's the right choice. It's always the hard decision that's the right one. Like, nothing is free and nothing is easy. Most of us from tribal communities and from ethnic backgrounds understand that you have to make that hard decision. And for people to see that the president made the tough choice about shutting down the XL pipeline, a lot of people are going to be really upset about that, because
Especially Justin Trudeau.
and he was upset about that for sure. But it's not the end of the day. And I think the end of the day is many years out in the idea of long-term thinking.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. That's true.
But the more you bring it to light, Corky, by doing the work that you're doing, the importance of it is for us not to give up and keep those messages going out there, no matter how we do it. Like, see,
There you go.
yes, exactly. That this land is stolen. No matter how we do it, it's really important that we, keep the drumbeat going. So good work, Corky.
Thank you.
Corky, you mentioned something earlier just about the wonderful perspectives that were provided by the authors, and part of the strength of the catalog, I think, is all the different perspectives. And I'm curious to hear from some of you the difficulty of forwarding that unique perspective, like thinking about what you wrote, Kate and Gail and Steve and Katie. What's remarkable about Corky and Corky's project? Because you really captured it in your essays.
Who wants to jump in?
Looks like Gail's gonna start.
Okay, good.
Growing up in Haudenosaunee territory, we have what Europeans call our Thanksgiving address, and what we call the word before everything that we say in meetings about the circle of things that support life. And so one of the things that most attracted me to his work is that when he saw those trucks driving that huge equipment across the reservation, he began to do research about what was going on, and he quickly discovered that it was something that did not support life on the planet. that the tar sands were incredibly destructive and resulted in water pollution and killed animals, killed people who ate animals that were poisoned by tar sands. So you have this situation where Corky doesn't see something in his neighborhood, begins to ask questions, what's going on? And then he conceptualizes a series of actions to do in the landscape. And he conceptualizes a series of artworks to make, some of which sort of document those actions. And in the process, he gives viewers of his artwork this complex story that makes them think about destruction of the earth and how you need to support life on the planet, and how the ceremonies and ways of doing that indigenous people have developed over time help to support that life on the planet. And then you have the dominating culture, American culture, that is continually trying to get us to forget the things that our ancestors teach us, and the things that help us to stay in harmony, so that we all sort of end up living in this contemporary American culture, which is eating the planet, this contemporary Canadian culture, which is eating the planet. And so when you have somebody who has incredible skills as a printmaker, a photographer, a conceptual artist that Corky is and has, you realize how people who study his work have these incredible lessons that he teaches in that work because of his curiosity, just because there will be trucks driving across the road. One of the things that's currently upsetting me is that Biden got rid of the XL pipeline, but he didn't deal with the Dakota Access Pipeline. And so people are standing off are still sort of struggling, because they've already put that in. They're struggling to have that closed down. And so we still have struggle to do. I am delighted that Biden chose a Laguna woman for the head of the Department of Interior. And I'm just waiting for the Senate to confirm that appointment, because that is really important. It is about time we have a native person heading the Department of Interior and thinking about public lands in the U.S. and how you protect the resources of those public lands, and thinking about all of the things that work on Indian issues in the Department of Interior, and how historically that department has stolen so much of it. It's like, yes, we're at maybe a point of change, but we have to stay on top of it, and we have to keep educating people. And the fact that Corky's work does educate people, and it has such interesting complexity to it and layers to it, makes it really fascinating to me. And I want everybody to see this body of work. I want them to think about it and study it. I want curators to think about traveling it, and showing people in different parts of the country this body of work because it's so important.
That's why that catalog's such an important tool, Gail. I agree, absolutely. Steve, did you have something that you were going to say at the beginning?
Well, I think in talking about the difficulty of generating an essay, I think a starting point for me was just arriving at the fact that I really believe that this is a master work. That I'm thankful and humbled to be included with this group. But once I arrived at the fact that everything is resolved about this piece, formally, it's resolved. It deals with universal human emotions, and the messaging is just direct and clear. I think one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is how many artists and writers and poets have been dealing with really dark issues throughout history. And I think of like T.S. Eliot or Tolstoy and the evolution of the anti-hero. And in Corky's tale, I mean, we have a lot of anti-heroes. and when you walk in the installation, it's very dark. It was very dark. And but we have a lot of anti-heroes. And I have also been thinking about this, and I just wanted to interject this little wacky thing I've been thinking about. It's a John Anderson country song. I'm just an old hunk of coal, but I'll be a diamond someday. And to steal a mining phrase, I just think Corky's a diamond. And, he's been formed by all of this pressure. And this piece from beginning to end was under this pressure. And it's like a diamond. It came out on the other end and everything is resolved about it under pressure, but it doesn't feel like it's under pressure. And so I've been thinking about those things, and I'm just humbled to be part of this and to generate some ideas. And I was there the first day, when Corky put the print on the front steps of the museum and ventured off in this series of rituals and messaging, and helped with the installation. I was humbled to be included in being able to help out with the installation. So it's a remarkable piece, Corky, and thanks for allowing me to be part of it.
Thank you, Steve. Beautiful comment.
And Steve, while you were talking, I could see Katie was nodding her head as soon as you said masterwork. And I know, Katie, you were really impacted by this piece as well and moved to write. You're still on mute, Katie.
Beg your pardon.
Not at all.
Typical. So I have somewhat more formal but brief remarks to make about the history of this piece and the way that it interacted with the educational setting at the University of Montana. But first I want to say, I want to acknowledge that I'm on Niitsi Tape land, Blackfeet land. I'm up here in northern Montana, having had to drive here because the internet service is so bad around here, which is something one could say about infrastructure in Indian country. But I'm outside Sterling Holy White Mountain's house and Shayna Schultz's house stealing their internet. So I want to acknowledge them for helping me out here. And sadly, I'm in a car. So, there's some lessons to be learned here. Did I make the right choice or not? I'm not sure.
You did.
Thanks, Corky. Like Stephen, I'm really happy to be here. This is really distinguished, amazing, and illuminating company, intellectuals, artists, and activists. Not sure I belong here, but I first encountered Professor Clairmont's work on the tar sands in Alberta when teaching the second iteration of a class at the University of Montana in the English department, Petromodernity, Art and Culture in the Age of Big Oil. Corky's stellar, paradigm-altering exhibit happened in the last month of this graduate seminar, and we took a field trip to MAM, as well as attended Corky's provocative and informative lectures, which were really incredibly important. And they were absolutely the highlight of the seminar and blew everything else out of the water. My students still talk about it. So it just was really stunning for everybody who came down and watched other people go through the exhibit and have similar experiences. I'm really grateful, as are many of my colleagues at U of M and then elsewhere, for Clairmont's steady and crucially committed, and I mean committed in the practical sense, in the sense of real world things matter, real world outcomes matter. I'm really grateful for this committed artwork. And in particular, I'm grateful for the publication of the book because I think it's going to make your artwork much more teachable. I intend at the next version of this to order the book, have the students order the book. And what the book teaches, simply put, from my perspective, is that it is work that fundamentally engages in a Salish practice of radical decolonization that draws on and refigures indigenous, social, land, and species relations in ways that challenge state forms of settler colonialism in what's now called North America. So that's my sort of starting point in standing in front of the exhibit and then also teaching it. And by way of closing, I just want to say that an article, Art, Indigenous Sovereignty and Resistance in the Age of Big Oil, is forthcoming in American Indian Quarterly, spring of 2021. And I was in some ways present at the production of this article, but in large part, the article is the long and beautiful record of produced by the long and beautiful record of Clairmont's life and work of dissent as a Salish and tribal artist, dissent against environmental and political despoilation and degradation, against America and capitalist settler colonialism. It's that caused the article to come into being. And it's quite a record that you have, Corky, and it's right and fitting that we celebrate it today. And then just finally, I want to say my deep gratitude to Kate Shanley, who's a mentor to all lucky enough to come into her orbit. And she's a fine reader and editor of scholarly work. So thank you very much, Corky.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
You bet.
Been a lot of
Thank
time
you.
in my car
Kay.
driving to Fort McMurray and back. Very appropriate.
It's the paradox, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I suppose that's a good jumping off point, if nothing else, just to say I just do what I do. But I'm a little under the weather because I had a COVID shot of vaccine. And so you see me blowing my nose and yawning, and it's because I've been in bed all morning with a fever. And as Corky started out with the pandemic, there are things that are alike between this active witness that we see in Corky's work and our current situation with the pandemic. We have to come together as of one mind, as the Haudenosaunee Thanksgiving prayer says at the end and at the end of every enumeration of the particulate existence in the world. And I was thinking about how profound art can be when it bridges that silent private place of an individual with a collective either a collective joy or a collective suffering. But art can do that like no other medium. And Corky's art really does that. And as a person who grew up on the Fort Peck Reservation, I could say when I was a kid, I remember hearing about the Holocaust, World War II Holocaust. And when you're living in a place like Poplar, which is not very prosperous, where no Indian people have jobs downtown, not in any of the stores, where there's an oppressive structure and you're living under it and you're a child and you don't know what to make of it. There's really not someone to say to you. Across the world, people create fascism, and through that they objectify others and destroy cultures and people and flora and fauna. And they do all of it in the name of righteousness. So that silence that I had as a kid, there was no voice for it. But I knew the prairies I know the prairies of the tar sands. They are home to me. I love open sky. And Corky's exhibit spoke to all of that. And as we are in the pandemic, we have a responsibility to others, and it's invisible. We can't carry around a germ, and we have to think about not just someone we're in touch with, but that person's grandmother or grandfather or uncle. And it seems like once you can name things, once you can start naming the loss, you can start to heal it. And I saw the tributes to people who had died on public television yesterday, and it was, those are real people who will be missed by their families, who contributed great things. So this is, I know that there's a plodding nature to art, that Corky has to get up every day and do what it is that he thought about doing, starting the day with. And then he puts it together and he gives it, sends it out, and Gail too, sends it out to the rest, stands back, looks, thinks, names. And I'm just grateful that you're in the world, all of you, because we can be that witness who watches in silence, who has no power, but then transforms that silence into something that speaks to the rest of the world. So I'm sorry to make you listen to I'm not this bad and I'm not this old, decrepit honest. I'm just very happy to be among you today.
Thank you, Kate. That means so much, and I'm sorry you're not feeling quite up to par. I mean, that was really gracious of you to speak to us today, and I really appreciate your commentary and your beautiful heart. Lynn Lynch.
We're delighted you got the vaccine, despite the adverse effects. And I know, Ben, you have a hard deadline at 2 o'clock. I wondered if you could share briefly just the struggle of capturing the exhibition and turning it into this wonderful document. And one of the things I think both Corky and I admire about Ben is the first thing he wanted to do was to do a studio visit because the exhibition was down, and he wanted to. This was before the pandemic struck. We've been working on the catalog so long but Ben went to Corky's studio, and Corky spent time and brought him through the work.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. My name is Ben Ferens. I'm here in Missoula on the territories of the Salish and Pandare. And I'm, this was such an incredible project for me. This is the first book that I've done for the museum, Brandon contacted me about an opportunity to start to document exhibitions that have, taken place at the museum. And I have to say, I can't think of a harder assignment than creating a book for Corky. I mean, for me, I find his work to be so moving. I feel that he's sort of the quintessential conceptual artist. And I really needed to understand exactly what was going on so that I could carry that concept through the book, through the layout and composition, and try to stay out of the way, really, and do nothing that would detract from the amazing story that Corky told. Yeah, and I think that I did need to immerse myself in the work. I had Brandon send me a ton of information before I even started the design process. I read every single essay. I spent, I don't know, Corky, was it a half a day with you at the studio? And it was actually multiple visits. It was not just that day. I mean, we spent a lot of time with each other. I was able to really ask Corky as many questions as I could possibly think of to really understand the journey and the intention and the effect of the project. And yeah, I just wanted to celebrate that in a way that made Corky feel good and make a a book that really echoed the body of work, really. Yeah, I feel like this is one of those projects that the design is no design. I mean, I really didn't do anything. All I did was make sure that I could walk the reader through the body of work in such a way that they would understand the intention of the project. That's really all I did. And it was a great honor and a super opportunity. And I'm happy to now consider Corky a friend of mine. So thank you guys so much for having me. Really one of the highlights of my career to date, for sure.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Definitely a good friend. Appreciate your effort and what you did. It did highlight the work in a very beautiful way.
I can see Jean and Neil plotting something on camera there. I don't know quite what they're up to, but it's something pretty interesting. You feel free to unmute and jump in. Katie also sent a question that she'd like Corky to speak to his recent work turning Donald Trump's Sharpie signature into a representation of the coronavirus. It's such a powerful and humorous work. And I'll put a brief plug in that Corky is, oh, there he is with his mask. Corky's donated one of these prints that includes the circular coronavirus with Donald Trump's signature for the Missoula Art Museum auction, which is coming up. And you can visit us online and find a link to the auction. Thanks for that question, Katie. Corky?
Well, it's hard to, I think Trump will be forever remembered as somebody that didn't understand the nature of what was happening or even want to deal with it. And when I got a payment in the mail, that he'd sent out to everybody, a small amount of money, and he was trying to buy our support, of course, because he followed it up with this nice letter stating, that he had sent it out, of course, and then he signed his name at the bottom, and his name was, I looked at his name, and it did represent Trump in so many ways. So I took that signature and I put it in the round, creating the Trump virus. And then the installation, or the piece that's in the museum now for the auction, it's about that. And and it's Raven wrapped in a Hudson Bay blanket. And he's talking to his friends, you know, which are all the animals and the plants, or and warning them about the virus. And he's talking about the Donald Trump virus being more menacing and more deadly than the smallpox blanket. So it was just a way of somehow bringing, you know, an awareness, in particularly in regards to our tribal communities who are being hit so hard with this virus. So it's just a way of maybe documenting the time, but also the importance of wearing masks and trying to deal with this virus. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Katie.
And we had Kate step away. I think she really is under the weather, and it was an act of heroism for her to join us, which I really appreciate. She texted just as we were getting online, and she said, "I feel just awful." And I said, "Feel free to skip, Kate. I know that everybody reacts to the vaccine differently." And she wrote to everyone, "I have to disappear here. Thanks for including me in this project. And of course, thanks for Corky for his great spirit that he shares with all of us." Corky, we got another question regarding the use of the choose arrow. And I wondered if you could expand on that. Here it is.
Thanks, Steve. Steve's got one of the t-shirts with the symbol on it and the little bears on either side, the gummy bears. Yeah, the double-headed arrow sign, you know, I see every day, you know, on the way back home, because we have a couple T intersections that we come to, and so the double-headed arrow sign, you know, having to stop at that signage and make a turn one way or the other, and it's a warning sign. And I thought it was a great symbol to talk about what was happening with the tar sands and the impact it's having. And the word choose, instead of, you know, spelling it that way, I was commenting, of course, on making the right choices, but also on the gummy bear itself, chewing the gummy bear, you know, it's eating that. And, you know, what I didn't mention, and what was, I believe, in the book, commenting on taking one of the, when I'd gone up to Fort McMurray the second time, when I was actually working on the project, I took a company tour bus, and we'd visited different sites. This is a Suncor company tour bus, and you had to call like the day before to get a spot on the tour bus, right? So there was full of tourists from all over the place. And we were driving, or the bus is taking us to different points around the tar sands mining sites and processing plants. And when I would get off the bus, I, you know, of course, taking photographs, and I had the little gummy bears with me, and I'd set the gummy bears up, you know, and photograph the gummy bears at different places. And the tour guide, of course, got back on the bus, and she was kind of excited because she announced that she had seen one of the tourists photographing gummy bears, you know, and she said, "Well, did you know that the Suncor Corporation furnishes the lubricant to the gummy bear company so the gummy bears don't stick together?" And that was totally news to me, you know, but it certainly fell in line with what I was trying to say or trying to do. And you do find the gummy bears all over the world. You know, we later, Linda and I, we'd made a trip to China and got into the little shop by the hotel, and sure enough, here's the gummy bears with the candies. Of course, they were Chinese gummy bears, you know, and but I had to buy some, and I did a couple of pieces in China, and one of them's in the book here, and I noticed the Chinese gummy bears were just a little plumper than the American gummy bears. And so you could really see a little difference. So when I did the project in China, I would put an American gummy bear right next to the Chinese gummy bear, you know, and use it as a reference, you know, to the project. But but if you see the work, and maybe you go into a marketplace or whatever, and you see the gummy bears for sale, maybe the project or the nature of what I did might come into your mind, you know, and as a reminder. You know, so, which oil, you know, goes all over the place. It's so, but that's the nature of the choose sign and the gummy and the double-headed arrow.
And you can see that double-headed arrow in each of the prints that Corky made. This is site number 1, and for those of you who didn't see the exhibit, you can see the break in that double-headed arrow where every site that you visited, every 50 miles, right, Corky? You were at half,
right,
and left half of the arrow that you printed there, and took the other half with you to make the document of that event.
And you can see the little gummy bears in the photograph above the double-headed arrow image being left at the site as well. And with the nature of stopping every 50 miles was to select sites that I didn't know about necessarily, because I really didn't know what exactly was at the 50-mile stop before I would get there, because I wasn't trying to put together like a travel brochure of the most beautiful places. You know, I just wanted to document the site, because every place is important. Every place has its significance, and every place makes up the whole. And every place is affected by what's going on in the tar sands site. So that was kind of the basic nature of that kind of stop, you know, every 50 miles.
I just want to say that all those stops were so incredibly significant in their own way. Like Poacher's Landing as a site was like amazing in order to think about like the poaching of oil, poaching of land, etc. Sorry to break in there, but I felt like the sites were, you know, they were ordinary, but they also documented so much history.
Yeah, and each stop was right at, I tried to stop right at the 50-mile mark. I mean, I didn't go another 10 miles or stop before. It was right at the 50-mile mark, as well as I could do that.
And here's Poacher's Landing. I'm a little slow on the uptake with the images, but trying to follow the conversation as best I can. Corky, we had a comment that came in. The gummy bears, did they also represent the animals, the four-leggeds?
Yeah, that was the actual reason I chose the gummy bear itself, was references to the loss of the life of the black bear that was being destroyed as the boreal forests were being cut away and demolished, actually, because when they mine the tar sands, they scrape away the top of the earth, and that destroys, of course, the habitat of the animal. And so the bears looking for foods would come in contact with the workers and the work camps and different things, and they'd be destroyed. So it was kind of referencing that, you know, it was a way of keeping them in mind as I was traveling, but also it was in reference to their plight, you know, and all the animals up there suffered that same thing, same plight. The area of Fort McMurray, that area is the largest inland delta on the continent. So that means all the waters and everything comes into that area. The great Athabascan River runs right in the middle of this development area, which is now greatly polluted. And when they are processing these tar sands, they make these huge man-made lakes, which are highly toxic. There's scarecrows floating around in the lakes and sound cannons that go off periodically to keep the birds and the animals from going into the waters because it'll kill them. It's you know, flying over the top of this area, it's like a 50-mile development. You know, you see all this stuff. You can't see it when you're on the company tour bus, but flying over the top of it, you know, for an hour, you know, taking pictures out of the window as best as I could, you know, really, it's a horrible experience. You know, the project itself is, you know, I tried to do something that would highlight those aspects to a degree, and you know, it's still a trivial project in comparison to the destruction, you know, that's going on up there and other places too, you know.
Oh, Jean's got her hand up. Go for it, Jean.
Okay. You know, I just read a book by Toni Jensen, who's Métis, and it's called Carrie. And her book is partly about her research about guns and who uses guns and how they're used. But the second part of her book is about the Native women who are being murdered. And part of it is caused from these oil sites. So where these sites are, they're enslaving Indian women and children at these sites. Okay, get that, children. Not just the women, but children also are being brought in for sexual assaults at these locations. And they're going on she is saying, at every site where they're drilling, fracking, wherever it is. And she visited some of these camps. And, you know, Biden has said that he and Harris are planning on doing more investigation of this and trying to get this stopped. But so what I'm saying is, along with the research that Corky has done here, there's another piece to this, that our women and children are being assaulted as well as murdered. And it's at a high rate, more than any other ethnic group right now. So we're in a situation here which is really egregious and frightening within our families.
Thank you, Sean.
Cork, we've got a couple other questions that came in. I'll pose them both and you can take either one of them. The first is, do your experience as an artist in Los Angeles tie into or inform this particular work in any way? Which I think is a great question from Ted. And then Kate's husband, David, writes, Corky, thank you for all your work. Thanks to all the essay writers for this brilliant and beautiful publication. You mentioned, Corky, that you're encouraged to see the recent shift in national leadership. Do you feel that's a step toward your call to choose? And what are you working on currently and next, Lemlitz?
Well, I definitely think it's in the right step, and hopefully better choices will be made. I think Biden has a huge task on his hands because the members of the Senate, there's many Republican members of the Senate that just refuse to try to open their minds up to think differently. They're entrenched in their bad behavior. Hopefully they'll come around, but boy, what a task ahead. Yeah, it's just disheartening and sad. These are supposedly educated people, and I'm having trouble seeing their education has been so askewed and going in the wrong direction. And I hope that they'll be able to turn around. And that's kind of the spirit of our tribal communities, certainly. We see the world or the life in the circle, and the circle continues. And hopefully, we'll be able to be in that circle long enough to where things will turn around, and life will be much better for a lot of us. Yeah, I really appreciate the comments that Jean is making on what's going on with the exploitation of our tribal children and our women. It's just ugly and sad, and it's the ugliness of the way the natural resources like that are being exploited. It's just kind of a reflection of that kind of attitude that's pervasive in those areas. It's a sickness, and hopefully that will receive attention, and we'll be able to do something positive about that and help those that are caught up in this issue. The other I guess question about the work that I'd done when I was living in Los Angeles as a conceptual artist does tie into the tar sands project. I did several pieces when I was in LA that involved travel. When you're living in Los Angeles, you want to get out of the city once in a while, and so I loved doing projects, that I would involve going out of the city. Leonard Edmondson, a really good friend, artist, printmaker, he and I did a project called California Beaches, and we traveled to several beaches in California, and in that project I had printed pre-printed a segment of paper, with a stripe on it, a rectangular stripe, and I had taken all the paper with me, and I tore off, the paper, the corner of the paper, leaving a portion of the paper in the beach itself, and documenting the beach areas and talking about location and different things. So it's kind of a precursor to the tar sands piece. And then one other piece that was a major piece, I suppose, in terms of travel was circling the United States. And I used the phrase support subversive art in your community. And I cut that phrase up, into segments. And then I visited the major newspapers in the different places that I stopped, and I left the segment of the phrase in the papers. And it was an NEA grant, and I just wanted to have fun with it. And at the time, there's, and probably now too, a lot of congressional people and citizens of the United States, they really don't want to invest in the arts. And there's some controversial art projects that the grants had been given to that received a lot of publicity, and so it's highlighting not supporting artists, through grants, and waste of taxpayers' money. So with that in mind, by placing this ad in these newspapers, I was actually trying to give back a piece of art to everybody. And the first part of the word support, SUP, I'd left in the Los Angeles Times magazine, and their distribution is like millions. They have 7 million papers, you know, they would distribute or more. So 7 million people got a piece of artwork, you know, funded by the NEA. I thought that was pretty great. And then one of the stops is New York, and eArt went in New York Times, and of course that has distributions of millions too, you know. So, and every artist wants to be in the New York, right? So I not only distributed my work to millions of people in New York, but I was also an artist in New York, exhibiting my work, right? Kind of tongue in cheek, but it was fun. And the last ad was put in Seattle, and it was the Seattle, I think it's, I don't know if the paper is any functioning anymore, but Globe, or I can't remember the name of the paper now, but it was the word unity, which is the last part of the word community. You know, unity went there. So it kind of pulled it all together in the, again, kind of a tongue-in-cheek way, but I completed the project, and by stopping in, I think there's 5 different places, I also had sent copies of the newspaper to the Los Angeles County Museum, and 1 copy went to the Whitney Museum. So they all had 5 copies, or the 5 publications, which I'd asked them just to put it out on the coffee table and let it go, you know. They didn't have to put it up on their wall or make a big deal. It was just subversive. So that was another major travel. But so I'm used to, or it's always been, in essence, maybe okay to do, or I felt comfortable in doing pieces, you know, travel like pieces, and as Jean had mentioned in her essay, you know, travel has always been part of our way of life. What we do, you know, we do it for purpose.
We lost Katie. She wrote as she left, "I'm running out of power here in the car." I'm so grateful to have joined you all, and I'm grateful for the blessing of Corky's sharp, necessary, and beautiful work. Keep making and supporting subversive art.
I'll do it.
And I don't think that you as panelists can see the wonderful group of people that have come. So many friends from across the country. Joe Fedderson, Wilder Schmaltz from the Froelich Gallery, Jennifer Complo McNutt. Jennifer writes in closing, "Thank you to Ma'am for this wonderful discussion. So wonderful to touch base with friends. Corky and Linda, Jean and Neil, talk about you all the time. Steve, good to see you. I have another appointment. Anytime you're in Indiana, would love to give you a tour. Best, Jennifer." So just really, I love that Zoom can reach everybody across the country. It's one of the positive things that this pandemic has brought, is bringing people together in this unusual way. I think that with that great historical perspective, Corky, maybe we should close. And Ted, you'll have to get a catalog, because the writing, especially Steve's essay, I think touches on that history so smartly. But I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us. We're getting lots of thanks in the chat box. It's been really great to see everybody's faces, and thank you all for participating in this wonderful discussion.
Stay safe, everybody, and big hug. Big hug here. Love you all. Appreciate your words. Lunch.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
All right.